business owner stuck in fear, doubt, and worry about what the marketplace will look like in the future? Then this show is for you. Strap on your seatbelt and get ready to disrupt and innovate. Here's your host, Lisa Levy.
Joining us today is Josh Elledge, a visionary entrepreneur, U.S. Navy veteran, and one of the leading voices in authority building and client attraction. As the CEO of UpMyInfluence, he helps purpose-driven leaders generate predictable revenue through high-trust relationships and strategic visibility. He's the host of the Thoughtful Entrepreneur podcast, where he's conducted over 2,200 interviews with industry leaders. He specializes in helping entrepreneurs go from invisible to irresistible without outreach, cold outreach, or slimy sales tactics.
Yeah.
Josh, welcome to the conversation. Thank you for being here with me.
Well, Lisa, it's great to be here. I'm so honored. Thank you.
I am so excited to have this conversation. I've had the opportunity over the last several years to interact occasionally. And with each time, what you're building and the impact that it's having is so amazing to me. So will you share with the audience what you're doing today and why it's so important?
Yeah. So a couple things. So, and by the way, thank you so much for that very kind introduction. Yeah. So my background is in media. I've been a journalist since the 90s. I was a journalist in the United States Navy. Been in the media somewhere between 2,500 and 3,000 times. I've podcasted. I've over 2,500 podcast episodes published as well. Gosh, Lisa, that's a lot of blabbing.
And it's a lot of experience.
Yeah. Well, and in journalism school, I had the really amazing opportunity to learn from Adrian Cronauer. And this is relevant because, what Staff Sergeant Cronauer, by the way, most people won't know that name. So Adrian Cronauer is the subject of the movie Good Morning Vietnam, starring Robin Williams. So if you remember your 80s movies, go watch that. Not nearly as comical, I'll just say, as Robin Williams, but he had a point, right? And that was, that when we go in front of a camera, when we're writing an article, when we're producing content, when we're in service to an audience, we have a sacred duty with that audience. And that is to, always honor them, always treat them like adults, and always, always be truthful. Because in the long run, you're not going to be able to get away with lying. History has shown that. Sometimes, you can fool some people some of the time, but, you can't fool all the people all the time, per Bob Marley. So that was kind of my background. And that led to creating a company. Savings Angel did quite well. I became a consumer expert, and I helped consumers cut their grocery bill in half. And then that kind of led to me just kind of helping out because like I said, I'd built a 7-figure company with no paid ads. Everything I did was just going out and serving audiences on TV, on radio. I've been a syndicated newspaper columnist since 2007. So again, just been serving audiences, right? And again, in doing so, and you give so much value, people will come find you. Like, you don't need to sell at them. In fact, I think if you sell at audiences, you do them a great disservice, because I think that's where you start to, I don't know, it feels disrespectful to me. Like when you start strong arming and, act now, blah, 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 blah. It's like, people know what you're doing. I mean, it still may work in certain corners, but I don't like being sold at or spoken to that way. So anyway, so UpMyInfluence is kind of just unintentionally, I created, what we've done today. And we have launched, Lisa, now more than 250 podcasts, because podcasts are the ultimate networking tool and the ultimate networking platform and make friends platform for high value leaders who know a lot of stuff. Like, if you are very good at what you do, then you really need to be in this ecosystem. And the reason why is not just necessarily because you're going to be in front of audiences. Sure, you can be in front of audiences, but what most people don't appreciate is just how many centers of influence are actively either guesting or hosting podcasts. So you get to spend time in the green room, in the VIP lounge with super high value leaders who are doing things. So That's the main thing when we launch podcasts for our clients. And we're going to talk about guesting too, because I suspect, Lisa, that there's probably some friends that are listening. I'm going to give you some really important things that you need to know if you've ever thought about being a guest on a podcast, or maybe you've done it a time or two and maybe it didn't work out really well. I'm going to lay it down for you because I've seen this from all angles. But getting to my point, about the value of podcasts, the reason that we launch these podcasts for our clients is we help them to become a household name in their industry. We are effectively giving them journalist credentials so they can start hanging out with people that are way above their pay grade who never would have given them the time before. So effectively, we help them launch a podcast. They now get to invite their ideal partners, influencers, investors, and clients to spend time together, truly in a Bob Burg go-giver kind of energy. And we could talk a little bit more about what that means later if you want, Lisa, but it's leading in generosity so that you earn relationships. And again, once you spend time, it's like, when I've spoken for the Tony Robbins organization. I've spoken for social media marketing world several times, all the podcasting conferences, marketing conferences, etc. And I'll tell you this, Lisa, that I do most of my businesses at conferences in the speaker lounge or at the VIP mixer. That's where everything gets done. On stage, I'm there to be of service, right? I'm there to build my brand and make an impact. I'm not there, obviously, to sell, baby. I mean, that kind of happens naturally. But man, it's those quiet conversations in what I like to call the whisper network. That's where all the big deals get done. We've heard of this, doing business on the golf course kind of thing. That's where it gets done. This is what leaders know. And this is what amateurs maybe have not yet realized yet.
Absolutely. And Josh, oh my gosh, there's so much that you just shared in there, but I want to pick a couple of things, right, where we dig a little bit deeper. I love the point that you made when you're standing on stage, you're serving your brand. You are not selling to an audience. You are positioning yourself, what you do, and you're partially educating.
Yeah. And I should caveat that unless that's just why you're there. Like, because there's those weird free marketing conferences that they put in, bring in some big names, and then just a pay to play, like you're paid to sell at that audience. Man, that's not my vibe currently, but hey, again, I want to kind of eat that little portion out. We're not talking about those guys in those kind of conferences.
We totally understand, and thanks for that clarification. But the point and dig into that is the power of the green room and the whisper network, and how with the podcasts, whether you're hosting or guesting, and I do want to talk about the differences in a little bit, but that having an invitation into that room is the key, because that's where the meaningful interactions start.
Yeah. Yeah. It's, again, I think what most lead gen locust and spamateurs, which I like to call them, are doing is they're trying to just sell too aggressively in email and the DMs on social media. It's uncomfortable for everybody to watch you do that. So please don't. But, I think what most of us are really what we're just trying to do, like, especially like, let's say you're a consultant or a coach and your engagements are, there's some significance to those engagements. You're not just selling like a $10 widget or something like that. Like it's the kind of stuff where you want to build relationships. So again, honoring the relationship. And I think what we want is we just want a decision maker to just slow down, right? And maybe get to know us a little bit, get to know what we do a little bit. And you have to think about, well, how can we get that done? Well, you could go fly to conferences and try to spend time in proximity to these leaders. But I'm telling you, it's like once you get into these ecosystems where leaders are just serving. Lisa, another example would be going and speaking at conferences and, maybe being on panels. Being on panels are wonderful because, let's say that there are 3 other people on the panel and the moderator, like you are just going to get to know people in doing that, right? You're hanging out with leaders in the VIP lounge. People just slow down. Hey, tell me what you do. Oh, wow. That's really cool. Hey, wow. Hey, man, maybe let's grab some time sometime next week. Now that I've slowed down and gotten to understand what you do, like let's have a follow-up conversation and see if we should be working together in some way. Maybe there's some collaboration opportunities. Maybe I can help make some introductions. Maybe I can help you with this, right? And it's, it's doing business the way that two friends that like each other, that have a lot of stuff going on. This is what it sounds like in the VIP lounge. And so we are big proponents of just modeling behavior, how leaders do business together. And that's how that, in the 250 podcasts that we've launched, that's what we do. And our clients will make 6 and 7 figures a year in sales just from their podcast based on who they get in the room with.
So, audience, did you catch that? 6 to 7 figures based on who they invite into their room, their podcast, or how they show up as a guest. So let's talk, Josh. Will you do a little compare and contrast for me from your perspective on hosting a podcast versus guesting up on a podcast?
Great.
Let's play with those.
Yeah. So I want to do, and I hope you'll ask me about this a little bit later. I do want to talk about guesting and how to be a far better guest, because as of when we're recording this, we're getting ready to launch a beta of a brand new platform called Pod Verified, and it is going to completely transform a very, very broken podcast guesting world. And I'm sure you and I will compare some notes and probably go, yes, thank you, Josh, for bringing this up. Hey, we'll talk about that in just a second. Let's talk about the difference between hosting and guesting. So guesting sounds very exciting, right? Because you get to be a guest, you get to be on a stage, and people get to ask you questions, and you get to tell your story, and you get to make an impact to an audience. One thing you need to be very realistic, and listen, again, here are my statistics. I've been podcasting since 2007. I've done well over 2,500 interviews, close to 3,000 podcast episodes as a host. I've also been a guest on over 400 podcasts. I've handled a lot of guesting work in the past, getting some of our clients as a guest on some really, really good podcasts. But mostly we shifted to the other side of really helping people start podcasts. And there's several reasons for that. It really doesn't matter what your goal is. When you guest, all right, there's a lot of content out there. That's number one. So you're adding to that, which you should be doing, right? But it's very important that we maintain very realistic expectations of what usually happens. And what usually happens is nothing. And you got to be okay with that, because what you're doing is several things here that are positive, but you expecting that you're going to be a guest on a podcast and then all of a sudden everybody's going to be ringing up your phone and trying to do business with you, that just doesn't happen. It just doesn't happen. Back in the day, it would happen a little bit more, but it doesn't today. Okay, so why would you still want to be a guest on podcasts? Well, for a lot of reasons. Number one, this is how you build your media brand, right? You can either be quietly behind the monitor, nobody knows you, nobody cares about you, you're silent, you're not getting your voice out there, and you can live in obscurity and try to do business that way. It's hard to do business that way. So I'm sorry, you do need to get out there. You, as a founder of a company, you have a mandate, right? If you're a CEO and you're responsible for growth, or you're a founder and you're responsible for growth, that is your number one job, right? A la the E-Myth. You got one job, and that's to grow your company, which means you need to get your message out there consistently and predictably week after week after week after week. And slowly but surely, you can start to increase your perceived value as a thought leader. You can increase your authority, right? And when you have a lot of authority, opportunities open for you. So value number one of why you should guest on podcasts is that it is going to increase your overall perceived authority. Okay. Give me 2 consultants or coaches. One has been on 50 podcasts and recognized and celebrated, and I can see that on their website. And give me someone else who's not a whole lot going on there. It's kind of the vibe. Guess who I'm going to work with, right? I'm going to work with the one that has social proof. Podcast guesting gives you third-party validation and perceived authority and influence, even if no one even listened to it, right? Now, people will listen to it, but I'm just saying it's more, Lisa, and I know you know this, right? It's less about the activity that you're hoping for from that audience, because, and I'll share this too. Here's what we know about podcast listening audiences. They're emotionally connective. They oftentimes will consume a lot of content, right? But you'll never know about it. Like a typical podcast listener will never message or communicate with the host or the guest. Like the vast majority, I'm talking like 99% plus, right? And again, you got to be okay with that because it's more about what you do with this appearance rather than wishing and hoping that someone, is just going to be listening to the audience and then they're going to pick up the phone and call you. So podcast listening audiences have more in common with TV viewing audiences. So you're softening the market. You're building familiarity. Again, these are indicators. Google knows when you go on podcasts and they reward you for that. It can improve things like your domain score, just overall media presence and score. Certainly, at Pod Verify, the platform that we are building, we're actually going to, it's a free tool where you can get your score. And a lot of it is based on the podcast guesting work you've done. So the more your score goes up, the bigger and better shows you are able to get on, the more your authority goes up, the more your influence goes up. Now, again, one other thing you want to do with your podcast appearances is that you want to make this a part of your regular communication with your own people. See, your own people already know and like you. These new people that are hearing you for the first time, good luck. I mean, they don't really care about you. They care about them and they care about solving their own problems. So hopefully you've provided enough value in that podcast interview so that they take action and they go, oh yeah, it was that Josh guy that da-da-da-da-da-da. And maybe at some point they'll follow me on social. And that's all I get is a follow. But now they're a little bit more my ecosystem, but way, 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 way top of the funnel kind of stuff. Again, the other side is you take that appearance and you repurpose that to your own people who are already in your pipeline somewhere. So these people, they might already be in the consideration phase of working with you or buying your product or something like that. Man, if you can give them a podcast and they're already considering working with you, and now they spend 30 minutes in proximity with you, hearing you interviewed in a podcast in the interview chair as a respected and treasured and valued guest, that is a really, really powerful impression that is going to move those people along if they're already in your pipeline. Similarly, how you share this on your own social media is quite honestly way more valuable than most hosts sharing you on their social media. So if you think that you could just show up to a podcast, do your thing, and then go, well, I guess my job is done here. Oh, my friend, you're just getting started. You have done maybe 30% of the work, and I'd say I'm being generous with that, right? Now, again, the effectiveness of your 30% has to do with a lot of prep work and things, and we could talk about that. It's kind of a rabbit hole. Which we probably shouldn't, because that's a whole nother podcast talking about like how to be a good guest.
Yeah. But anyway, flip the script to the power of hosting, right? So you've given some great insight into, as a guest, there is power in it. You just have to understand the boundaries. But when you flip it and you say, I am now sitting in the seat and I am inviting people to my conversation.
Let me illustrate this in a way I think that this makes sense, right? So as a guest, here's the reality. You are effectively playing a long-term game. This is what we know, right? Most of this is, so guesting, and this is kind of the third or fourth thing as well as like a benefit of guesting, is there is some SEO value, right? So you do the thing, you're going to be listed, hopefully you get some backlinks and stuff down the road. You're not going to see immediate value from that. Like it's going to be a down the road kind of thing, but I wanted to include that in there. Okay. So again, hosting versus guesting. When you are a guest, you are rolling the dice and saying long-term play, I'm brand building here, and maybe down the road, I might get some additional business out of this. Certainly I'm going to use this to help my current systems move along. That's your best case scenario in guesting. And you should always be podcast guesting. And I mean that so seriously. Otherwise, you're just obscure.
Well,
Number two,
you're living it. You're showing us right now, right? You are guessing.
Yes. Obviously, I do what I talk about.
Right. You're walking the walk and talking the talk.
Yes, I eat my own yummy dog food. Yeah. So when you're a host, here's the reality. In the podcast guesting world, for every decent podcast host, and Lisa, I know you could talk about this, there are thousands of potential guests out there. The disparity has always been there, and it has never been greater. Like I get dozens of pitches a day. I'm up to episode 2200 and something like that. The longer you hang around, the more people reach out and want to be on your show, which is great. We love that. We don't take email pitches. We redirect them into a process that we've built, the same process that we provide for all of our clients for guest management. But see, it's like you're going to the club and you're looking fine, and all of the other folks in your gender, they're not looking so good right now. So in other words, the odds are so in your favor when you are a host. You now have nearly 100% control over who you are spending time in the room with. Now, you have to be generous. You have to lead with noble intent. You have to do these guests a solid. You are effectively working as a professional host, as a journalist, as an interviewer, and you are working right now. But we truly want to bring value and lead in value, because if you do that and do that genuinely, it will just feel very natural with this other person that you'll then, hey man, let's see if we should help each other or whatever. It's very rare that I come across someone. I mean, I can tell you this. Obviously, out of all of my interviews, and if you listen to my podcast, The Thoughtful Entrepreneur, you are basically hearing me get to meet my potential clients, partners, influencers I might collaborate with in the future, every single one of them, right? And so at the end of every single episode, I ask one simple question. I'm like, listen, that was really great. Hey, why don't we chat next week? I'd love to see if we, if there's something we should be doing together. I've launched over 250 podcasts. I've interviewed over 2,200 experts, that are all 6 to 8 figure business leaders. I may have some introductions. I'd love to learn a little bit more about your offer. Maybe it's valuable for one of my clients or whatever, but let's grab some time next week. I'd love to explore. And that's it. Lisa, with that invitation out of 2,200 interviews, I've only had one person ever say, I don't want to talk to you. Like nobody, except for that one guy. This was really early on. And, that's back when we were just only we were just like a PR firm. He's like, I already have a PR firm. And I'm like, yeah. So, which is fine. And if someone says no, great. I'm not looking to sell at anybody. I really just want to explore relationships. And I find with that tact, Lisa, sales, because in business, we all have to do quote unquote sales, right? But if you sell this way, where it's just doing nice things for good people and then just exploring to see if there's any opportunities to collaborate in some way, it is the most enjoyable way of doing sales. It feels so good. No more Tom Hopkins kind of, objection handling and closing tactics and trying to just, shoehorn people and sell at them and all that. Like, that's yucky. I don't like that stuff. Some people do. It's not my jam. But see, that's the environment I create for myself. So all of our clients get 2 guaranteed high-level Dream 100 caliber invitations every single week. So of course they do business. Usually kind of depends on their offer. But if you do this well, podcasting becomes the ultimate make friends button. It gets you in the green room. It gets you in the VIP lounge without ever having to travel anywhere. You're just meeting people hanging out on Zoom for 30 minutes, right? So then in the VIP room, you just figure it out, right? But here's what we see. Generally, again, because we have such high control over who is in the room, both demographically and psychographically, we usually see conversions somewhere between 15 to 40%. And again, that really has more to do with what our client is offering and what they do. And really, it's like if presented with the opportunity to meet someone really good and you kind of hit it off or whatever, and you kind of do something together as leaders, like what percentage of those people would you end up doing business with? You're pretty much going to experience that when you do this go-giver way. We call it our podcast leader network. And again, that's all about my influence if you want to learn more about that.
Josh, thank you for going into that because, right, there's so much podcasting is powerful and everybody who is a founder, a business leader, somebody who is positioning themselves for their business to grow or for their own professional growth needs to understand how to use this so that they can actually build the authority and the credibility and all of the things that we've talked about. If people are curious about what you've talked about today, how do they learn more? Where do they go?
Yeah, well, listen, first thing, go ahead and Google me and see what I've done in my life and go check me out. Go creep on me. You can look at my social media. But listen, a couple things, right? So number one, and Lisa, I don't know how much time we have too, but, in terms of guesting, boy, I don't know if, like I said, I have so much that I could advise because I'll tell you this, and I know like 95 98% of the guesting world is doing it wrong. Like they're spamming podcasters. I'm going to tell you this right now. Please don't spam podcasters. Three words, we hate it. We hate spam. Don't spam podcasters. Please stop doing that. We all collectively think less of you when you do that. So don't treat us, I'm speaking as a podcaster right now, please don't treat us like transactional chess pieces. Treat us as podcasters like humans that you would love to collaborate with. So again, be willing to spend the time to build the relationship. And again, I can get more into the weeds on, the best ways to do that. But getting back to your question, Lisa, here it is. I'm looking for podcast guests right now. If you're doing okay in business, you're a leader, you're B2B especially, come on over to it's my website. Here it is. So if you got a browser open right now, enter this in. It's 3 words all together. UpMyInfluence. And it's probably in the show notes as well. There might be a direct link. Just open it up, creep around, but learn about our Podcast Leader Network. It may or may not be a fit for you, but I am always looking, like I said, always looking for great podcast guests. But yeah, there's a lot more, Lisa. Of course, I don't need you to opt in. I don't need your opt-ins or anything like that. I've got a video that's going to spend about an hour and 20 minutes really going through this. I'm going to explain a lot of data. I'm going to back it up with a lot of case studies and share with you exactly what our clients do step by step so you can learn from their example, even if we never, ever work together. I just want to make podcasting, I'm an evangelist for podcasting as a platform.
And Josh, thank you for that. The link and everything will be in the show notes. Lots of ways to help you creep on Josh will be in the show notes. I will make it as easy for you as possible.
Creep away.
Creep away. I've never had anybody make that offer before. That's new and different. I'm not sure that I'm going to steal that one, Josh. I steal a lot of things, but that one might not be it.
I just know, I know what it's like to be a guest and listen to someone like, and there's this invisible wall. And, it's like, listen, you can even talk, like I've got a full GPT on my website. Like if you want to talk to virtual AI, Josh, like I'll never know any of that conversation. You could just chat with that bot. And it also has all of my domain expertise. So if you want to talk to a custom GPT that has all of my knowledge, I'm just about like open sourcing a lot of this wisdom and knowledge because I've lived it for decades.
In the conversation today, Josh, you have shared so much with this audience that more words per minute than almost any human being I've ever talked with, but they're meaningful words. And so I don't always do this, right? But I have my little notes, right, as I'm trying to summarize and get us out. But you started with that this is a sacred duty to the audience, that how we show up, we have to show up with that integrity, treat our audience like they're adults and tell the truth. And sometimes the truth is a little bit ugly. And this conversation was lots of fun. They're not all, right? There are some things out there when you dig into them that they're ugly to play with, but we need to have those conversations. And as somebody who's growing and building a business, you are a leader, you are doing things and you want to grow your business, that position of host gives you that ability to have the most powerful, most impactful conversations with your potential ideal clients. And Josh took us through the power of what it means to guest and how I would say it's at that entry point, right? You grow from there, you learn how to work the media and move into this hosting space where you can then leverage the Whisper Network and build business authentically through relationships. And that's the key, because used car salesmen's tactics make us all feel like we need to take a shower and it's gross and it's smarmy, icky. So podcast hosting and leveraging a platform and a platform is the right word for UpMyInfluence, is a really great way to get the results exponentially faster than somebody like me who's been navigating through it for a couple of years trying to figure out the formula. There are subject matter experts out there, Josh being at the top of that list, who can help you do it better. Josh, thank you so much for your time being here with us today. And audience members, you know my rules. Don't get left behind. Join me next time.
That's it for today's episode of Disrupt and Innovate. Head over to iTunes and subscribe to the show.